Welcome to the Waffle Flower channel. This is Nicole and it's in the details. And today we're creating a pattern paper background using the Pretty Wings stamp set. A stamp layering set is perfect for this technique as you can use all of your fun, colorful inks to create these very beautiful, colorful images, and it just makes for creating your own pattern paper so easy. So you can perfectly match whatever you're creating simply by changing up the ink colors. I chose to do all of the ink colors, doing a very rainbow-ish type of background using all of my favorite Waffle Flower inks. I'm using a little Oh Happy Day here, lining up all of these beautiful butterfly images from the Pretty Wings stamp set. And then You Said What is the yellow. So Oh Happy Day and You Said What first, then taking the butterfly bodies and stamping those with a nice crisp black ink. I tried to stamp as many butterflies as I could with one press of the Misty. A stamp press tool of some sort really makes this technique so much easier, as lining up the images and stamping multiple images is really possible with something like the Misty or other types of stamp presses. I'm also making sure to clean my stamps really good after each inking, so that I can simply lay those stamps out again and ink them up and press them down. Here's an example of inking butterflies with two different colors of ink. I really wanted an assortment of butterfly colors, so I used a little safe choice here, and then Daydreaming, line up the next layer, and then I will ink these up with a little Happy Go Lucky and My Pleasure inks. If you don't get a good stamped impression with the first inking, or there's some areas that are kind of faint, using a stamp press makes it easy to stamp it a couple times, which is what I did for almost everything here, and that allows you to get beautiful, solid stamped impressions. There's the butterfly bodies. Go ahead and clean those up real good, and switch that out for the next pieces of the butterfly. And for whatever reason, I didn't stamp both at the same time here. Go ahead and finish that out. You can see it's a little faint there with the Daydreaming ink, but with a second impression, it is perfect. I'm simply going to go around now and fill in all of the areas. I generally like to start in one area and then kind of work my way up and out, or down and out, either way. So I'm just filling in. I'm also using all three of the butterfly designs from this stamp set. There's also some gorgeous flowers, so if you would like a flower background rather than a butterfly background, that would be super easy to achieve as well. Once I have my background completely filled in, you can see it here, I'm going to take a little black soot distress ink, and I'm using an acrylic block for a palette, water it down with a little water, and I'm taking a fine tip paintbrush, picking up that ink, and simply flicking the paintbrush all over the surface of my background to add some distressing. This really gives that look of your own custom pattern paper. This could very easily be a larger sheet of paper that you trimmed down to fit your card front. Once that's dry, I did die cut something for my greeting from vellum using a Lacy Layers die. One of the reasons I love the Lacy Layers, or excuse me, vellum so much is that you can still see the beautiful butterfly background behind that, but it mutes it enough that the greeting is going to be easy to read. Also from the Lacy Layers dies, I'm die cutting several layers or frames, both from smooth white cardstock and black cardstock, and I'll show you why I did that here in a little bit. I'm going to layer them one on top of another to give that a little bit of dimension to help frame it up, plus I wanted the frame to be white. I felt like the black was a little too distracting, but the black underneath the white really makes it pop. It gives it a little bit of that shadow. From a side angle, you're going to see that little bit of black, and it kind of just helps frame it up really nice. On the vellum rectangle here, I'm taking greetings from the First Step stamp set. I'm going to stamp the first part of my greeting first using a little Versamark ink. I'm using the powder tool first to help keep the embossing powder sticking only to the stamped portion of the greeting. I'm going to go ahead and pop this up and add my black embossing powder. This is going to help make it legible for when I add the second part of the greeting. I didn't stamp everything the first time simply because I couldn't get the two parts of the greeting close enough, and I didn't want a huge gap between the every journey needs a and then the first step. So stamping it separately makes that so much easier. I added the embossing powder without heat setting it so that I could see where I had already been. If you don't, sometimes it's really hard when you're using Versamark ink like this on something like white or vellum to see where you've already stamped it. I didn't want to accidentally cover up part of the greeting. I want it close, but I don't want it to overlap. Once I have the rest of that stamped, I can go ahead and add the rest of my black embossing powder and then simply heat set that with my heat tool. I chose to do black because I've got the black distressing in the background, of course the black for the butterflies, bodies, and things like that. And you want the greeting to be legible, but you still want to be able to see through, so that's where the vellum comes in. Vellum is one of my favorite ways to still be able to enjoy whatever is behind the vellum, but it mutes it enough so that it doesn't overpower things like a greeting. So there's what that's going to look like. Here are my frames. And now I'm ready to just start putting it all together. I like to use the EK Success glue pen because I'm attaching the vellum and there's really not going to be anything too much on top of it other than one butterfly. I still need it to be secure to the card base. I'm hiding it by adding little dabs of glue behind the embossed areas and then simply laying something heavy like a large acrylic block on top to hold that flat while the glue dries. Otherwise, vellum has a tendency to try to curl up a little bit, so putting something on it to hold it down until the glue is completely dry works great. I'll do the same thing with these little frames by adding just some little dabs of glue all the way around. And then I'm simply going to line that up right around the vellum rectangle. Add some dabs of glue on top of this and add my next layer. Lining that up exactly. So 2 black frame layers here. Again, I use the acrylic block to kind of keep my fingers out of it and to hold it down nice and flat. Add some dabs of glue on the back of the white frame and then pop that on top of the black one. This is centered right in the middle of the background. And you can see that little bit of black is visible from side angles and it gives it some nice shadowing and dimension. I did die cut or stamp and die cut another butterfly. I used the Coordinating Pretty Wings dies this time, a little foam adhesive behind the wings to give him a little bit of dimension, and that embellishes underneath the stamped and embossed greeting. I'll add some adhesive to a white side fold card base, add my panel to that, and this custom stamped background is all finished. Just going to add a few extra dabs of glue here and there in a couple places I feel like needs it. Thanks for joining me today for this custom stamped background featuring the Pretty Wings stamps and dies from Waffle Flower. For more product information, please visit waffleflower.com. Follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for more creative ideas.